lot more than what they were earning by just working for the company. Does that make sense? So I don't know about you, I love the gig economy because it gives us an opportunity just to come in, make some money, get out, right? And so on. So whatever you can do to be able to maximize your earning capability, do that. So in order to do that, you have to have marketable skills, right? Nobody's looking for a skill that everybody else has, right? I'll give you an example of one skill that almost anybody can do, right? Like Uber, anybody can do that. You see what I'm saying? Like, so that's not necessarily the biggest marketable skill. But like if you go out and become a plumber, you become an electrician, you're a carpenter, or computer programmer and so on, like these marketable skills are you're able to earn more of a livelihood out there, right? So when you're looking to get into a career, life work as we call it, you want to be able to say, okay, I need to be able to maximize my potential to be able to earn. I'm not telling you to go do something that you don't like to do, but you need to find your niche. Just like that young lady who was she was teaching English, right? She found a niche, but she took it to the next level, right? And so that's what you want to do. You want to be able to have marketable skills, and you want to be able to learn and become savvy on how to be able to maximize your earnings through marketable skills, right? And then obviously, grow your income honestly. You don't want to violate the laws of health necessarily to be able to earn a livelihood or to be able to do that. So I'm not telling you to stay up until 3 a.m. every night and go to work the next day at 6 a.m., right? That would be disastrous. Like you may be earning a lot of money, but on one end you're going to get sick and have to pay back that money because of sickness. So you want to be able to do that. So now let's talk about budget, right? In dealing with budget, the simplest way you can make a budget is you can take just a spreadsheet and then just have a list. You see that list right there where it says rent, this, that, and so on. And a lot of times when you do a spreadsheet, you can just press and you can create calculations and so on. And if you want to know how to do that, you can watch YouTube videos. But you need to map this out, right? I kid you not. Like when we take a trip, like let's say we're going on a trip to a camp meeting somewhere, right? I'm like getting the receipts from the gas station, food that we buy on the road, whatever the case may be. It's like, and immediately what I'm thinking about is what? It took me $660 to leave my home, drive 500 miles to go to this camp meeting, and it cost me $660. Guess what? The next time I'm making that kind of a similar trip, I already have it in my mind how much it's going to cost me. What am I asking myself? Can we afford to do that? Because I already have a view of at least what it should cost me on a trip similar to this. You see what I'm saying? So that's why creating a budget really, really is helpful in managing your money and helping you to be a good steward. So you have to create those things. So again, when you're dealing with budget, you want to make sure you just put on it. And then you know what? Listen, you're not a computer person. That doesn't work for you. Guess what? Pure pen and pencil. That's how accountants kept their books, right? Simple. Write a list of all your expenditures, right? This is what and so on, and this is what I need to do. This is what I have to come up with every month. And then this is one thing I could do to be able to save. And then this is something I can do then to extra money to do whatever I need to do. Maybe you want to invest in a skill that you have. Maybe you want to invest in a business that you want to start. Whatever the case may be. Unless you have a budget, you will not be able to, you're lost, right? I'm telling you right now, if you don't have a budget, you are lost. You don't know how much money that's coming in, or you may know what's coming in, but you definitely don't know what's going out. So that's not being good stewardship. So you need to have a budget. Spirit of Prophecy says, need to have a budget, right? You have to have it. We all need to learn how to keep accounts, right? And then obviously in every budget, remember, God comes first. Right. So in dealing with debt, let's talk about credit cards. So basically, credit history or your credit report is basically telling any and everybody that checks it that you can borrow money and pay it back on time. Right? So if you were lending money to someone, would you want to know that that person that you're lending to can borrow from you and then can pay it back? Would you want that assurance? Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right? Especially if you're lending money that you really, really need in the future. You're going to be like, I want to, it's the same thing. Creditors want to know that you can borrow money and pay it back, right? So they need to see what's called credit history. And in order for you to have credit history, guess what you must do? You have to borrow. You have to borrow and pay back on time. Yeah. Or at least on the least bit, you have to at least get some kind of credit card to be able to do that, right?
But I've heard from consecrated people that you want to get rid of all and leave no credit cards for them.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? You want to cut up the Dave Ramsey method, all cash, right? Dave Ramsey method is excellent if you don't have discipline. It's absolutely for you. You have no self-control, you have zero discipline, and you're saying to yourself, if I have a credit card, Brother Ben, I'll shop till I drop, and it's the death of me. So you know what? I'm going to cut them up and throw them away. Absolutely. I used to have a client who used to take $20 in his pocket, and he would go out to town with his friends, and once the $20 is spent, he was like, I got no more money, so I can't spend, so he would go home. If you're that kind of a person, go for it. You know yourself. Dave Ramsey's method is excellent for you. But let me tell you something. I have about 10 credit cards. Each one of them get paid to zero balance every month. To zero every month. Now, let me tell you something. One particular credit card that I have, I will spend $100,000 to $120,000 running my business. And guess what I get? I get 2% cash back. Someone do the calculation for me. $120,000, 2% cash back. How much money is that?
You said 120?
120,000. That is $6,000 that I get for free from my credit card company. All right? $6,000.
But you gotta spend it.
Yeah, but look.
You're gonna spend it anyway though.
You're gonna spend it anyway. So look, here's what I do. My wife has a separate credit card that we use for our home spending, and I have a different credit card that I spend for business. And between us both, we may spend anywhere to like $150,000 sometimes, $160,000. Because I told my wife, matter of fact, let me get it. She will get 2% cash back. She may spend throughout the year, she may spend about $4,000 to $5,000, $6,000 just on house stuff, groceries, things that we need for the home, right? 2% cash back, right? And then here I am spending $100,000, $120,000, 2% cash back. So one year we got like $8,000 back, right? And guess what I do with that money? I take all that $8,000 and I have an Apple savings account. You can open one up too. Apple account gives you 4.5% interest rate, right? So let's say I have $10,000 in my Apple account with 4.5 annual yield return. How much is that on $10,000? It's $450. That's another $450 that I've gained. So all throughout, I probably would gain about almost $9,500. I put my $8,000 in, I may get about $300, $450 back from putting it in a high yield savings account. Is that good stewardship? You better believe it. Because guess what? That money, I pay tithes on, I pay offerings on, and guess what? We'll use it to provide. We may help a ministry, we may help with this, we may do that. But that's an extra $8,000 that I made because I'm disciplined in my finances. And you need to be too. You need to get a credit card with a 2% cash back, Citi card is one. Wells Fargo has a really good one. And then if you are like, you know what, Brother Ben, 2% is not enough for me. I want 5%. Guess what you can do? If you have an Amazon account, you can apply for an Amazon Visa and you can get 5% cash back at all Whole Foods and all Amazon purchases. But guess what? At the end of the month, whatever you buy from Amazon, you're going to buy it anyway, even if you use your debit card. Right? But you can get 5% cash back by using your credit card, and if you're disciplined, you're not going to spend that money because you said, I've spent it on a credit card, I need to pay my credit card at the end of the month, but I got 5% cash back. So for every $100 that I spend on Amazon, I'm getting how much back? $5. That's good stewardship. That's if you're disciplined. Does God want us to be disciplined and self-governed? Listen, you cannot be saved unless you have self-discipline, self-governance, self-control. Correct? That's the gospel. Yeah. That's what it means to have victory over sin. Self-control. Right? I saw him.
It's something you don't have on the board, which is good. Because if you had a credit card stolen before,
Yeah.
Even with your debit card number getting stolen,
Yeah.
and then racking that up and taking cash out of your account.
Oh, have mercy. Listen.
So I've seen some protections to have a credit card so they can't steal the bank's money.
Yes. If you are using your debit card and punching in your PIN, stop it. I'm telling you, stop it. Like, that is the worst thing you can do in life. Because when I use a credit card, let's say someone stole my credit card and used it, or committed fraud, guess what happens? Taken care of. Matter of fact, Citi card, they're really good at that. They'll call me and be like, hey, one time my card got used in Minnesota at a Best Buy. Immediately they stopped it, they text me, and they said, hey, someone is using your credit card, da-da-da-da-da-da. We put a stop to it. Guess what? I called and be like, hey, they charged almost $500, but don't worry, you're not responsible for that. If that was your debit card, that money's gone. If that's the cash being removed from your account, stop using your debit card. That is foolishness.
So only use your debit card to pay for your credit?
Yes, do not use debit card. Debit card, listen, I don't even know why I have a debit card. I have a debit card, that's never been used. Here's what happens. I spend my money on my credit card, and then I have it to be paid every month. Doesn't matter. My bank account will have that money, it's automatic, boom, it's paid. Right?
Pay the balance.
Yes. $8,000, $10,000 is not easy money to gain without doing anything. You understand? I'm telling you, you can maximize. You can literally make $1,000 extra at the end of the year just by using credit cards responsibly. And I don't know how in the name you're going to travel, rent a car, and so on and so forth without having a credit card. I don't know how you do it. So at least have one. At least have one. And my recommendation, Citi card, Wells Fargo, or the Amazon Visa. Right? Matter of fact, get both. Because the Amazon, anything you shop on Amazon, you get 5% cash back. And then the rest will give you at least 2% cash back. So use it on everything. Gas, this, that, so on, what have you. Use it. Okay? So you can get anywhere from 2 to 5% cash back on credit cards. So the Dave Ramsey's method is good for people who don't have discipline. If that's you, you need to follow Dave Ramsey. Don't follow my method. Right? If you're self-controlled with managing money, go for it and make that extra money. Right? Car loans. Obviously, for many of us, it's a necessity. Right? One thing I like about Ellen White, she says that whatever you buy, you need to buy quality. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but you need to buy quality. So if you're going and buying a car and you're choosing, like let's say you have the Hyundai and then you have the Toyota, right? But you're spending an extra $1,000 for the Toyota, go for the Toyota because the longevity is crazy good on Toyotas versus Hyundai, right? So if I'm doing that, I'm going for the best one. Why do I do that? Why do I not feel the conviction or the guilt that I've overspent $1,000? Because the principle of money management biblically is that you need to buy quality. Don't replace a car every 2 years or every 5 years. Does that make sense? So you want to be able, and then another thing with car loans is many of us, by the way, don't take this the wrong way. Okay, ladies, do not take this the wrong way. Women, if you're going to buy a car, do not go to the car dealership by yourself. You need to go with a man. And I'm not telling you because I'm sexist. I'm telling you because of statistics. Right? Minorities and women will pay more at the dealership for the same car than with their counterparts. Okay? So if you're a woman, you need to take a guy, especially someone like your dad, with you. I don't care if you're married. If you're married, take your husband. But if you're not married, or if you're married and your husband is at work but your dad is available, take your dad. I'm just telling you statistics. Minorities tend to pay more. I have a work van, it's a Mercedes. And I knew when I went in there to the Mercedes dealership, I knew Mercedes. By the way, the worst offender is Toyota. Toyota is notorious for overcharging minorities when they buy a car. I know this. I know the statistic. So when I went to the Mercedes dealership, I knew they were the ones that. So he came back at me with like 8%. I was like, are you crazy? Go to the drawing board, bro. We're not doing that today. Right? Right, remember, harmless as dove, but you need to be wise as serpent. Right? That meekness doesn't mean you get taken. Right? You understand? So again, when you're in a car dealership, you need to make sure like you're getting the best rate. What is the average rate? Do your homework before you go. The last thing I want to deal with this car loan situation is that you need to, actually two more things. One is that you need to go for the shortest term as possible. Alright? I know you're going to pay more, but again, you're going to end up finishing it earlier. And then, do not focus on the monthly payment. Because what they'll do is this. They'll make the loan 72 months. How much is 72 months? How much is 72 months? 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay? 6 years. The average time someone keeps a car is between like 3 to 5. So you're already passing that for the 6th year, right? God forbid you didn't get a quality car, so you know it's going to break down on you before the 6th year. And then you're going to find yourself underwater. So what you want to pay attention to is not the monthly payment. Oh, I could afford that. No. You want to look at the overall price, and then you want to look at, what the monthly payment is. Does that make sense? Because they can stretch it out to 72 months and make your payment like 150, but guess what? And with interest, you paid way more at the end of the term for the 6th year than you did for the 4 year, for the 48 months. Okay? Do not pay attention to the monthly payment. It'll be the death of you. And car dealerships know that, and they will prey on that. They will prey on your ignorance, right? Home loans. Oh, by the way, cars are just depreciating asset. So don't pretty it up. Don't put rims on it, the latest stereo, forget that. All right? Do not spend on depreciating asset. It is foolishness. Because as soon as you drive it off the lot, 10% is gone. The next year, another 20 is gone. The next year, another 30, then it stabilizes after 3 years. But by that time, almost 60%, 70% of your car value is already gone. Right? So it's already a depreciating asset, but it's a necessity, so we'll do it. We'll do it because we need to. But remember, don't add your rims and all this stuff. It's crazy. You have a question?
So buying a new car versus a used car.
Yeah, a used car or a new car, that's fine. If you have cash for it, pay cash. If you want to buy a used car for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, you saved it, use the cash. I would say go for it. Now, if you're a business owner like me, guess what? If I buy a vehicle with my business name, right? I have a $70,000 SUV that I bought, right? But guess what? All of that is tax deductible for me because I use it at least 50%, and I need that tax deduction. But guess what else? My family needs a big SUV because we take really long trips to all sorts of different places. Go see ministries, travel to academy, and all of that stuff, right? But you maximize what you need to get. And like my work van is like $64,000 for that van. But guess what? It's all tax deductible, right? I can deduct the interest and what I paid for it.
What do you think about keeping a car like if you just kind of want to keep it forever?
Absolutely. Cars, remember, they're depreciating value. So after you pay off for it, and after you kind of broke even, and it gives you 3-4 more years, you're a winner, especially without much trouble. But then, if it comes to the point where like, you're replacing an engine, and you're paying $5,000 to replace an engine, or you can get another car for $5,000 way better than what you have, you'll be like, well, that doesn't make sense for me to dump money into this car. Let me go get another car for this same amount of money, right? But yes, use your vehicle, unless you're like me, and you know how to maximize. So I bought a car before COVID, but after COVID, it shot up, and I went and sold it for the same price that I bought it for 2 years later to the dealership. So for 2 years, guess what? My cost, $0 to use that car for 2 years. Now, if you know how to do that, so you got to understand the system to be able to do something like that, but that's not something that I recommend for just individuals that may not know the financial system as well, right? So, let's talk about home loans. Now, here's where you want to be able to invest in, right? Because this is an appreciating asset, especially country homes. You want to be able to invest. And if you read the little pamphlet, Country Living, she says, men and women who have a comfortable home are kings and queens. So, guess what? God doesn't mind you having a nice, comfortable country home. All right? Again, since it's an appreciating asset, banks treat it as such, so they may give you a loan for you to invest in your ministry, start a business, and so on. Maybe take out a loan for you to go to somewhere to get a further education in medical missionary work. Whatever the case may be, you can do that if you have a home. At the end of the day, once you sell that home, because it's an appreciating asset, you're going to be able to make money out of it at the end of the day, right? And then, purchase below your means. What does that mean for young people 18 to 35 living around Roanoke? You want to live so close by and so on. You might have to go further out. You need to go further out into the country. Even if you're a single person, you can save a lot of money. Savvy, smart young people will go and purchase a home where it is cheaper in maybe a little bit rural area rather than right there in the suburbs or in the city, right? And then by God's grace, you'll escape all the foolishness that go on in the cities, right? So home loans are great. Education loan, obviously 18 to 35. I had to include this. Listen, you cannot go to school for unmarketable skill. Spend $100,000 on education, and then when you get out, you're making $35K. That is ridiculous and foolishness. So you have to think about this, right? You have to really think about this, and you say to yourself, hey, I want to go, and I expect to make this amount of money. So I have a friend of mine, his daughter just graduated from law school. Immediately out of law school, she got hired by a law firm. She has, I think, like $300,000 in student loans. But guess what? Her starting salary, $200K. You're making $200K, you take out $300,000 loan? Okay. But that's still a burden, but at least, okay, you have a better marketable skill, right? But I would not encourage you to take out student loans in any way, shape, or form. If you can pay, that means if you have to go to, whatever route for your education, do so. Now, I want to say this. I know about true education and so on, so I want to say this especially to the men, right? It is mind-boggling to me why so many young men are going to college instead of getting trades. All right? It's mind-boggling to me because when you're dealing with trades, like an electrician in the Roanoke area, Richmond area, would make about $70,000, $80,000 starting off. If you're in the DC area, you're making $100,000 starting off. money does it take for you to become an electrician? Maybe $5,000 to go to community college and so on. Matter of fact, the state of Virginia will actually give you money to go for free any community college of your choice, or any 4-year college, whatever electrical training is offered. They will actually pay for you to go and become what we call a journeyman. So once you go to school, you become a journeyman, and then you have a master's. So you take a test, you become a journeyman, and then you get your master's license. So when you're a journeyman, you're making like 80, 70,000 off the top. That's $35 an hour. That's if you're in these smaller markets. If you're in the big markets like Dallas and DC and New York, I can't even imagine, probably like 100 just for the what's it. If you're a master electrician, you're sitting in the office making $250K, and all you're doing is just pulling permits. And if you paid your due, now you're making like $250,000 a year. Plumbers will make more than that, right? Carpenters, even more. So it really boggles my mind why more young men don't go that route. Now Gen Z is starting to get it, because the Gen Z generation is starting to turn towards trades, right? Yeah. So again, the way I see this, like we have a short time in this world, everything is gonna burn. I'm not trying to necessarily be up here and become the next Steve Jobs. That's not what God is calling us to. But what God is calling us to is to be able to support ourselves, support the ministry, support our family, and expect the soon return of Jesus. Right? Yeah. So, again, in my line of field, I do commercial construction, and we can be near $1 million a year. Right? So, I'll never forget the first year, about 7 years ago, I started doing commercial. My first year in commercial construction, I made $375,000. Never seen that kind of money in my life. That's gross what we made, right? So, I mean, I couldn't believe that I can be able to make that kind of money, right? And then, progressively grew. So I'm just telling you numbers so you'll understand what you're working with, all right? So let's talk about saving and investing. Now, I'm going to be clearly honest with you that I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to like stock market investing or what have you, this and that. I prefer personally that you stay away from that and careful with it. But what are some ways that you can invest your money to be able to get good returns on your money? Now, I had some money in the bank, and it was a good amount of money. And I went into the bank and I'm like, what's your high yield savings account? What is that? They said, oh, it's about 4.6% annually. I was like, oh, okay, great. Sign me up. So I signed up, and by the end of this year, I will have made, this is just keeping my money in a high yield saving account, I'm going to make about $24,000 just keeping my money in a high yield savings account. And if I didn't ask, they wouldn't have given it to me. I don't know if you know how it works, but when you put your money in the bank doesn't just leave it in that vault. They take your money and they go invest your money. So Wells Fargo will take my money. Let's say I have $100,000. They'll take that $100,000. What they'll do, they'll go and invest it in different places, so they can earn. So on average, the S&P 500 will return about 9 to 10% a year. So out of that 10 grand, I'm asking them to give me $4,500. I was like, I want some of that. I know what you're doing with my money. I want some of that. So that's what a high yield savings account is. If you didn't ask, they don't give it to you. Right? Of course, you can do, CDs and so on and so forth. Now, if you're in the Potomac Conference, there's something you could do. I don't know how you feel about conference or what have you, but I love my church. They have this thing called the Curve Fund, and the Curve Fund is they lend money to churches to build churches. So if there's a company and they're like, oh yeah, we want to build a church. You lend your money to the Curve Fund, they'll take your money, and depending on what the interest level is, and they'll tell you, you can get anywhere from like 3 to 6% of the money that you're given back. And what's that money doing? That money's going and building churches. Okay? So you're literally investing it in God's work, and God is giving it back to you. It's called the curve fund. I don't know if you know about it. So you can obviously invest in that aspect. The other thing that you can do is just you can utilize different things that you have on your hands to be able to do that. Obviously, I told you that I'm a builder. I bought this 5-acre lot for $15,000, and I literally built that home. That home that you see up there, every single thing that you see, I did. Electrical, plumbing, the deck, except for the siding, the roof, everything. I did everything on that. It took me 3.5 years, but I finished it. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a mortgage when I finished it, right? And it cost me $65,000 in a span of 3.5 years. So that's maybe about $21,000, $22,000 a year is what I spent to build this house debt-free. 5 years later, I sold this house for $120,000, about double what I paid for it. And then I bought another lot, a 21-acre lot, for $38,000, and then I built another house for about $300,000. That house is now worth about $600,000, right? So now, if I want to move out of that house, I'll sell that house, pocket $300,000. The other $200,000, by the way, that one is built debt-free too. The other $200,000, I'll go find a cheaper land, and I'll build another house, the same house for the same amount, and then I can do it over and over and over again, and I'll be a multi-millionaire in no time. All right? I'm just utilizing my skills and what I have on my hand. Does that make sense? Is that making sense to everyone? I'm a builder. I have a house. I can always build another one.
Okay, so you would advise, so it's cheaper to build your first home than if you like say, okay, I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
So it'd be cheaper to build you a house or just to buy one?
So it's a tricky
Because
question.
I heard somebody that said they were like, it's not. Before I got my house,
Yeah.
I asked them, I was like, well, can you build me a house? And they were like, it's gonna cost you more than if you buy. And I was.
Well, remember, so it's a tricky question. There's a lot of variables in that, right? So, for example, when I was building the new house, I had some guys, I was like, hey, I need to frame the garage. I was gonna do it myself. And I was like, how much would you guys charge me to do it? Oh, we'll charge you $3,500 to frame the garage. I was like, are you serious? Matter of fact, I gave him more than what he asked me because he was really cheap. And they did a great job. Guess what? That week, I went and made 10 grand. Right? I went and made 10 grand somewhere else, and I paid these guys, 4 grand, and I walked away with 6 grand. But if I stayed there and framed that myself, how much money would I have made? Yeah, I would have only made $3,500. I would have saved $3,500 because I framed it myself, but I lost $6,000 outside.
Yes.
Does that make sense? That's how I calculate things in my mind. Doing things yourself always does not make sense, right? A lot of times, changing the oil doesn't make sense for me unless I'm like,
I like that.
do you have more money than time or more time than money?
Yeah.
It all depends. So whenever I have more time than money, I do it myself. Whenever I have more money than time, I was like, I need to save time, I'm gonna let somebody else do it, right? That's how you get it. But to getting down to the other aspect of your question, is it cheaper to build or is it cheaper to buy? Spirit of Prophecy tells us it's always cheaper to get something prepared. Like, I can find a country home, right? With fruit trees already on it,
Right.
Orchard, nice garden, what have you. Like, if you bought my house today, you already have a nice garden and you have a couple of fruit trees that are maturing and bearing, right? But if I calculate everything for me, especially, I build it myself, I can save a lot of money. I can save anywhere from 30 to 35% if I build it myself. Then buying it, I'm always gonna go for that because I'm saving a ton of money, and then I'm coming out with that as equity, right? The money that I save is not lost, but I can actually say if I sold this house 2 years down the line, I got 35% in it that I can immediately get out.
So it just kind of depends.
It all depends.
It is.
It all depends on the situation. All right. So one day I purchased a camper, right? And this is, I'm telling you the story to have a state of mind. So I bought a camper, and the reason why I bought a camper because we did a lot of camp meetings and family camp meetings, all of that. So I was like, let's invest in a camper. Let's be comfortable when we go out. There's a pull behind. I paid $14,000 for it. I paid cash for it, and I purchased it. And then, with my mindset, I'm looking at that camper, and I'm like, listen, we use this camper at the most 3 times a year, and the rest of the time is sitting in my driveway. This is ridiculous. That's why I'm talking about mindset. That needs to make money for me, because I just paid 14 grand for it, right? And so guess what I did? I started renting it out. I rented it out for 2 years. I made $6,000 in renting it out. Pure profit. Okay? And if any one of you know about, especially these cheap pull-behind campers, they start depreciating really fast, and things start breaking and so on. So there's a year where you're like, yeah, we gotta get rid of this, right? So then guess what I did? I sold it for $14,200 because the market had appreciated. I knew when to get out. I was like, let me get out because things starting to break on this thing. So I fixed everything on it, put that thing together, I put it out. Somebody came and right cash. Boom. This guy from the Air Force came from Williamsburg, Virginia, paid me $14,200, right? So I made $6,200 in owning this depreciating asset. Why? State of mind. Whatever I have needs to work for me and needs to do something. Like it needs to produce. If you're always thinking that way, you're gonna find something. For example, you're like, you know what? I go from Rocky Mount to Roanoke every day commuting for work. But you know what? Let me hop and get a Uber ride, and let me go ahead and pick up somebody and make money while I go that way anyway. That's what a thinking mind would do. So what I'm saying is that you're being resourceful in using what you have to produce. That's you're being a good steward. You're going that way anyway, so you're like, all right, let me pick up somebody, and by the way, before you accept the ride, you know where they're going. So you're like, oh, that's right around the corner from my job. So guess what? I'm gonna pick them up, drop them off, boom, I made $30. Gas may have cost me maybe $5, but I'm going that way anyway. On my way back home, I'm gonna do the same thing. Right? So in our everyday life, we can find things to be able to do that.
Like you build your house, you rent your house for Airbnb.
You could also do that. Yeah, you can rent out your Airbnb if you have a house. I would actually recommend that you rent out a place that you don't live in. If you have an extra home or what have you, absolutely you can do that. Actually, the lot that I bought over there, I thought about doing that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna build a little cabin on it. Either I'll rent it to somebody, or I'm gonna go ahead and maybe Airbnb it, right? That way, I bought the land. I'm like, okay, I already put some money into that lot. But if I build it and rent it, someone else is paying for it,
Right.
and it's easing me, then I can turn around and say, 2 years, 3 years from now, when it appreciates in value, I can sell it. Right? Let me tell you a story about one of our pioneers. And what he would do, and I'll tell you the name after I tell you the story. Here's what he would do. He would go to auctions and buy furniture, and he would fix up the furniture, and he would resell it. Right? And they loved auctions. You know who that is? His name is James White. Yeah, go read the history. Ellen White, one of her things that she loved to do was go to auctions. Yeah. She liked going to auctions too. So what I'm telling us is that like, if we find ourselves in a way we're like, hey, we have to earn a livelihood, we have to preach the gospel, we have to, listen, there's so many ways. Like that ant, you're making preparations to do this, to do that. Whatever your hand finds to do it. It's a state of mind, right?
How do you navigate feeling paralyzed and when you feel like we know the time is wrapping up
Yeah,
and markets are volatile right now.
yeah.
So how do you know, how do you navigate in terms of, well, this bank could close or you know what I mean? We see things shutting down, investments going all the way to
Very good
zero.
question.
It's just a very volatile market in almost every aspect, from housing to stocks to even the food that you buy.
Right.
How do you make moves and know that you're making the wise decision, and not investing in this world, but just being smart for what's about to come?
That's a very quick question. There's a lot of different things in that, but so I personally right now I don't invest in the market, right? I'm wanting to invest in my people. When I say my people, Adventists.
Yes.
So if I see a young man who's like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to invest in him, for him to be able to get to where he needs to be. Like I had a young man that was working for me, and he was fresh, raw, didn't know any construction work, and I trained him and everything. And I said, hey, what do you want to do? He said, I want to do electrical work. I was like, all right, find a school and I'll pay for it, right? Because this young man was so responsible. I know he's gonna go places, and he loves the Lord, right? And so I'm wanting to invest in that, and my return from that is that God is gonna bless me somehow, right? Now I'm not saying that you don't make investments to make money or this and that, but if I had an opportunity to, like, if someone comes and says, yeah, I'm selling this house, how much you selling it for? Oh, 50 grand. I was like, okay. You want to sell it for 50 grand? I know it has some work to do. I do that. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy it from you for 50. I know for sure I'm going to turn it around and sell it the next day after fixing it up, right? Now, do I consult the Lord when I do that? Absolutely, because the Lord may say, no. Something is going to happen 6 months down the line that you have not dreamed of, and you're going to lose on this deal. So obviously you consult the Lord. But opportunities come, you want to take them. If the Lord says, go for it, right? So that's how we know. We consult the Lord, and this is the advantage of a Christian, right? And obviously you talked about banks, failing and closing and so on. So you need to understand the protections that are being offered. You have FDIC, right? Federal insurance on your deposits. So any bank, if they go under, the federal government is actually going to pay you money that you've lost, up to $250,000. Now, if you have $1 million in one bank and you lose, that bank goes under, then you're only going to get $250,000. So as a good steward, what are you going to do? You're going to go to 4 banks and open an account for $250,000 in each of them, and that's how you're going to do it. Does that make sense? Because now you have knowledge. So you need to be educated. Like, if there's one thing that drives me crazy about Adventists, is that we need to be keen on finances. We think it's worldly to know finances. It's not. Like, I literally had, there's this lady came, we were having a conversation over potluck lunch. She says, I don't claim my tithe or my taxes. And it was a shock to me. I was like, do tell, why? She was like, well, they're gonna give it back to you when you get your tax return. My brain went into a freeze. I was like, do you know how taxes work? Like, first of all, you're not getting that money back. So for example, if you made $100,000 and you're paying tithe on that $100,000, you're paying 10%. So what's that? 10 grand, right?
Yep.
Now, when Uncle Sam wants to charge you tax on that $100,000, instead of charging you tax on that $100,000, they're charging you on that $90,000. Okay? Does that make sense? So you're not getting that money back. The consideration of how much money is being taxed goes down. So what is this thing about tax return? Tax return is your money. They're only giving back to you what you overpaid. So tax return is not free money. That's your money. It's just that the government gives it back to you without interest. Now the government has made interest on your money that they kept, right? Because if you don't know, businesses have to pay quarterly. Like I pay about $9,000-$10,000 for taxes every month, right? Because every quarter, because they want their money. And if I don't pay them at the end of the year, when I do pay them, they'll say, hey, here's the penalty. Is an additional $1,500, $2,000 penalty. But when they give you back the money, you don't get any interest. That's your money that you overpaid that you get back. That's what it means to get tax return.
So the lady that you're speaking of, she said she didn't
She didn't
on her
claim
tax
tithe
return,
on the
she didn't-
taxes because she thought when you got the money cash back from the government, she thought she was getting that back because of what she claimed on her charitable giving. And that's not what happens. What happens is that if you overpaid in your taxes, the government says, here's your money back. Sorry, we held it and we made money off of it. So
you're saying value
millions
your
of
tithe
dollars
on
that they
your
make.
tax.
So, yeah, so, Go for it.
This might sound a little bit dumb, but like it's
No, that's
a
fine.
question I had in mind.
sure.
So like if you want to buy land, I know that buying land and then buying home is like kind of the process is different.
Yeah.
And so like when you buy land, do you have to pay like all cash? Or
So, that's a good question. There's a couple of ways to buy land. One, obviously, you go to the bank and you say, hey, lend me money for the land. And if you're intending to build a house on it, you can get what's called a construction loan, where you can purchase the land and get money also to build a house. But obviously, by the time you approach the bank, they want to see a design. They want to make sure what kind of house you're building and so on and so forth. And they'll say, yeah, of course, we'll lend you money. Here you go. Purchase the land first, and then when you're ready to build the house, you come back and we'll start drawing money and we'll start giving it to you. So if you borrow $100,000, $25,000 went to the land, and then another 25 would go to do your foundation and everything else, and then another 25 would come out for the actual structure, and then the last 25 would be to finish it. Does that make sense? But you have to have a contractor and so on and so forth to get what's called construction loan. Now, you can go to individuals that own the land and you say, can we do owner financing? And you can just go to a lawyer, like a real estate lawyer. You can sign paperwork and you can purchase a land, $20,000, and that person may say, I'll give you 5 years to pay off for it, and here's the monthly payment. It's the same as a bank, but the owner would take it back if you fail to do so. But it's much more generous when you do what's called owner financing, right? They'll work with it.
so like what if the person that you're wanting to buy the land from kind of changed the mind of like, hey, you have to pay this much of amount, and then the next time you go back and see that person and they change their mind.
So
Is that like-
once you sign that contract,
Uh-huh.
seal deal, and then that's filed with the county, that property is now yours. But like the bank, they're gonna have rights to it if you don't meet your obligation, but they can't change the terms of it. Yeah, remember, that's why you go to a lawyer and you do it. So owner financing, you still do it appropriately, right? One thing that I wanna say to Adventists is this: everything that you do, make sure there's a paper trail, all right? Even if you're doing it with brethren. Like, I hate to see, and I made the mistake one time, I renovated a business for a brother, and he still owed me some money at the end of the renovation, but we didn't have anything written up. You know what I mean? And people forget, paper remembers, right? So I did not consider him important enough for me to do what I do generally for my best clients. Right? Everything paper. I don't care if it's your best friend and you're buying a car from him. There's some terms and so on that's not finished when you exchange. Yeah, let's put this. It's okay. Like, that doesn't mean you distrust the person and so on. You're just making sure you're doing everything and it has paper trails and you're being good steward for doing it, right? So, lastly, again, this is a counsel to an individual. It says you have been in business which at times have yielded you large profits at once. After you have earned means, you have not studied to economize in reference to the time and means could have been earned so easily, but have expended much imaginary ones. So this person was just spending, they were making good money, but they were just spending. And at a certain point, they weren't earning that kind of money anymore, right? So guess what? I told my wife, I remember I started doing? I told her, I was like, listen, this is too good to be true and it won't last. Let's pay off all our debts. So at the end of the day, if it goes away like the next month, at least we pay. So I paid my student loan off, we paid our cars off, everything. So right now, I don't have a mortgage. I don't have car notes. I have three vehicles, probably totaling about $180,000 for all those three vehicles. I don't have a car note except on the car that I'm driving, and I just bought it, and I'm right after I tax deduct it, I'm gonna pay that one off too, right? And I have something set aside for retirement and for emergencies. Now, if you're thinking like, oh, he must have done all this when he started earning money. When I was broke, when I was just dead broke missionary and I had to build a house myself because I couldn't afford to hire anybody else, I had my mortgage paid off. My car note was like $150, right? You know what I mean? Like, I lived within my means, wherever I am. And you need to live below your means so that you can be able to save, all of that good stuff, all right? So, again, you could give your family and yourself the comforts of life and be able to do what you need to do.
I thought that was, that's your backyard now.
Yeah, no, that's not my bag. I wish I had.
This is what you have.
I wish I had. But if you give me a moment, I can quickly show you. Quickly show you where.
It's all to be yours. You have to self-discipline and use credit cards.
Yeah, so again, listen. I think in the past, like, 5 years, I must have made at least $50,000 to $60,000 from the credit card company on cashback.
Really?
Yes. So I'm like, that's someone's yearly salary, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
I've been poor my whole life, so hearing figures like that. It
again,
doesn't seem real to me, you know?
again, what I'm telling you is mindset, right? Mindset.
You're on the path. Once, like he said, he works for his head.
Yeah, that's, we did this conversation, I would have started this, my whole endeavor, that's why my figures messed up. Because I'm trying to be self-sufficient.
You speak at multiple churches, brother?
Huh?
You speak at a church that you do events at?
Yeah, I do. All right. That's the new house. Wow. That's the new house, 21.5 acres. Now, another thing. So when I got the land, they were asking $50,000, right? Listen, the worst anybody can say no is no. I'm not gonna sell it to you for the price you're asking. But make a good offer, but be reasonable. Like, be honest and be reasonable. So they cut off all the trees in this place, but it's 21 something acres, and they had it for $50,000. I said, I'll give you 35. And the guy was like, oh, well, I'm not sure of that. I knew the owner is his dad, like the agent's dad, which they should have disclosed to me, but no matter. He was like, I don't know if the seller would do it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll add another 3,000, but if not, don't worry, we'll find something else. It's like, all right, let me get back to you. Within an hour, he got back to me, he was like, make the deal, 38,000. Like, literally 2 months after I moved in, there was a 16-acre right around the corner that sold for $180,000 just for the lot.
Huh?
Yes, right now in my area, a lot, we're talking about, 10-acre, 7-acre, 8-acre, 15-acre. You're talking about anywhere from the $150,000 to the $200,000. Just for the land.
Was this pre-pandemic? That you got it for under?
I moved in, the 2019 is when I bought the land.
I was about to
Yeah.
say, I knew it.
But when I moved in, it was after COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
after
so
COVID, everything.
That's when I brought my house too.
before, but here's the
There's
thing.
still stuff.
Whether
out there.
before COVID, whether before COVID, whether after COVID, there's still deals to be had. What you can do is, this is the thing.
People die.
When I first bought my house, the first house that I bought was 5 acre, and it was in the middle of nowhere, like almost 3.5 hours away from where I grew up, which is the DC area. And friends and family are like, you are crazy to do this. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, nah, no, and so on. And I was like, no, don't worry, I know where this is going. And literally, I doubled my money. I made like $46,000 from the first house that I built after I sold it, right? And when I sold it, I built this one debt-free before I sold that one. And when I went to the closing table, they handed me a $46,000 check, and I walked out, right? So, look, people were like, no, doesn't make sense, and what have you. What I was following was God's guidance, country living. And then in country living, my thing was like, I read a little thing in the country living. It says, buy property that your means will allow. So the closer I get to the DC area, which I wanted to be close to, the more I couldn't afford it. The further I went further south, the more I could afford it. So when we got to a place where we could afford it, I said, that's us. That's what we could afford. I'm not gonna make money out of thin air, right? But then, because I followed God's guidance and counsel, God prospered it. Because by the time I sold that first house that I showed you, the little house, COVID had already hit. And I didn't know, but it was interesting, people were wanting to move out to the country. So people from Lynchburg, because it was in Appomattox County, and it was about 15 minutes from Lynchburg, people were like, I had a bidding war on that little house. People were like, nobody would come and visit you, let alone somebody buying this house from you. A real estate agent told me, you'd be lucky if you get $80,000 a couple of years before.
Let's
Just
go.
telling you, Lord arranged it at the right time. So, that makes sense. Any more questions before we close? I know we gotta close.
This just curious as balancing, like, the typical stuff, the student loans, the investment, the whatever, emergency fund, just like general guidance on balancing all of those kind of like different line
Okay.
items.
You don't invest money, that's not extra money. Any money that you invest, if you lose it, not a big deal. Like life doesn't end for you tomorrow. If you invest money that it is critical for you, like if you don't have that money, like you're literally gonna be homeless, don't do it. Do not invest. I don't care how good that investment is. I would highly encourage you, don't invest unless, of course, heaven overrides that and he said, go do it, right? That's the only thing. But be careful because the natural heart thinks it's God's voice and we end up putting ourselves in trouble. So when you invest, investing is for people who have extra cash that they could lose. Does that make sense? So then how do you invest if you don't have that? Look for a high yield savings account. Look for CDs. Matter of fact, CDs are great because you can't touch that money for 6 months to a year, 3 months, whatever how long the CD is. Certificate of deposit, right? Then at the end of the day, you've got 10 grand in the CD for 6 months, compounding interest, you might end up getting maybe about $400 or $500. Right?
Alright, so I got a question for you. What do you think about when a company offers you free money through matching?
Any day. I'll take it all day, every day.
Alright,
Because,
that's what I thought.
listen, 401k is law, meaning that the law makes it easier for you to have 401k or IRA, which is individual retirement. Like for me, as a business owner, I would do an IRA. There's benefits and downsides to it, but if my company's giving me free money for my retirement, I will take it any day, right? Now, what I would do personally is that as soon as maybe even before you retire, I would take that 401k and roll it into an IRA, and it's gonna be less taxes on it, right? By the way, every tax code is not made for the middle class and the poor. It's made for the rich.
Which ones?
Every tax code, every single tax code is meant for, because Jeff Bezos got $4 grand back the last time he filed taxes. Yes, right? And you're like, he's the richest man in the world. How does he do
How
it?
does he get $4 grand back?
Because what they do is they put their money, they have their money in stock options. So he has he has maybe $200 billion in stock options in Amazon. And here's what he's gonna do. He's gonna go to a bank and he'll say, hey, lend me this amount of money. Let's say, lend me $100 million, which is a drop in the bucket for $200 billion, right? You lend Jeff Bezos $100 million, he'll buy a jet, he'll buy this, he'll buy that, but guess what? Tax code says it's not income. It's a loan. You understand what I'm saying? So what Jeff Bezos makes, he pays the loan, and now there's no income. It's only a loan.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
Life insurance policy.
So, I don't know if anyone read volume 1 of the testimonies in regard to life insurance, and it's very interesting, right?
No, but life insurance was different back then than now.
Yeah.
I know that's what people say, and that's not necessarily the opinion that I have. You get life insurance, like, alright, so for me personally,
Yeah.
I'm the only breadwinner in my family. My wife stays home and she homeschools, right? In a situation like that, it may be appropriate to get life insurance. So if I die,
She's taking care of
you
it.
know, she
That's
gets a
$7,000.
$500,000,
Yeah.
then yeah, she can continue the life at least to a certain stage when the kids are grown and she can be able to go to college. You leave something
Yes.
to be able to what's her name? If you're a single guy, why would you get life insurance, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes zero sense
Yeah,
for me.
not sure.
Now, you get life insurance so that individuals that need to be taken care of when you're gone are taken care of. So maybe a single guy may have, I don't know, his dad and his mom that he's taking care of, and he wants to make sure they're taken care of if something happens to them. I get it. But you want to make sure you have people that are being taken care of when you go. Yeah. If you don't have anybody you're gonna leave it to necessarily, and everybody, like my siblings have a place, my mom is good, my dad is good, and so on, don't waste your money. Right? Yeah, I would just say forget it. Right? But if you do have dependents, definitely. Yeah. Well, we understand how to use credit cards, right? If you use your debit card, I want you to stop using your debit card immediately. Go get a couple of credit cards. Use it responsibly. Make sure you apply for a credit card that gives you cash back. 2% is minimum, right? Yes.
Is your only dislike with debit cards the like unsecurity, or is there another reason?
It's insecure, and all right. So if let's say you went to Walmart and you use your debit card, right? You use your debit card and then you punched in your key code and everything, right? Let's say, like, Walmart gets a data breach, like some hackers in China hack into it, steal everything and put it in the black market, right? Your credit card and your PIN code is now out there.
Debit?
Yes. And you may not know it. You may not know it for a year. Because and this is the truth. Remember, if Walmart has to come out and tell the whole entire United States your data has been breached and your what's the name is stolen, their stock price goes down, right? They're gonna say we're investigating with this, with that, and so on, and then a year later you find out, and then somebody in Indonesia has your number and has gone shopping with it. You know, it's like, and then debit cards, there's no security. Like, as soon as that money is gone, they don't return that money. It's a debit. Like, it's actually taking the cash out of your account. If it was a credit card, guess what? The company would say, oh, fraud was committed, that's really not you. We'll take care of you, don't worry about it. We'll investigate, make sure we get the cash back, and so on. Or they'll write it off. Right? And you're not building credit history. And you're not getting cash back. So it's a double negative for you.
Don't forget about the free airline.
Oh, airline credit cards? What about them?
Huh?
Airline credit cards?
Well, the thing I don't like airline credit cards, you can only use it in the airline.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if you get a city credit card, you get 2% everywhere, right? Now some people would be like, oh, I'll get the airline and I'll get the city card because with the airline I'll get maybe 10,000 mileage points, and that's enough to get me a free ticket one day, right? But then that's for like frequent flyers, right? If you're on the plane every week, that makes sense. Like I'm like, yeah, go do it. But if you're flying like once every often for Thanksgiving to see your family somewhere, no. Just use the 2% cash back. That's it. Okay. So be wise. Mindset. whether it's your skill, whether it's actual products that you own, whatever it is, how can that work for me to be able to generate and produce is the question that you want to ask all the time. I know people who they'll be like, hey, this is homeschooling mom again, and so on, and homeschooling mom gets like 20,000 subscribers, and she has like 150,000 views every month. And so YouTube says, oh yeah, you monetize your channel, so we're gonna send you an extra $1,000 a month. Why not? All you're doing is you're using your phone camera, and you're doing what you're doing usually, and you're being helpful to other moms who could be using, that. I know key locksmith guys. All they do is they have a GoPro here or here, and they go do their work. And they have like 125, 250,000 subscribers. And they don't say anything. All they do is just do their work. That's all they do. And I'm just saying, like, I look at that and I'm saying to myself, that is amazing. Like, I'm not, some people are personalities. Like, you actually go and you actually do something as a personality. Some people are literally like, here's my GoPro. Oh yeah, you locked yourself out of the car? And I don't know who sits there and watches these videos. I don't know, like, what? It's satisfying. Like, you're like, oh wow, I'm seeing this getting done. Alright, so look, I would say to myself, some people just do live streams about their daily life. They're driving, and I'm like, man, there's like 10,000 people on their live. That's crazy. Like, so, again, like, my neighbor, she's Jamaican, she's Adventist. She'll get on TikTok every morning, and she would do a little devotional. I'm talking about 3 minutes. She'll have 180 people watching her stuff, and then later afterwards, she'll have like 2,000, 3,000 views. I'm like, all she's doing is like, hey, I did my worship today, and this is what I've learned, and let me share with you a scripture and a promise. God bless you, have a great day. All of a sudden, you keep doing that consistently every day, and then what's going to happen is all of a sudden you got 100,000 followers, 200,000 followers, and you're being monetized. You're making like 3 to 5 grand.
Yeah.
But why not? Right? Just telling you. And we need Adventist presence.
That's what I'm saying.